Bună ziua! And I will start directly in English because my guest from today is not speaking Romanian yet. So, hello and welcome to a new episode of Financial Education powered by BiziLiveTV and finzum.ro. I am Irina Chițu and I representing the banking financial aggregator, product aggregator, finzum.ro. And today we will find out what do companies want from a bank, from my guest. So Serge offers, welcome.
Thank you, Irina.
I will say a few words about Serge. Serge has 18 years experience in banking industry and now is head of business banking in ING Romania after Chief Financial Officer, yes, three and a half years before in the same bank in ING Romania, and also president of the Romanian Dutch Chamber of Commerce. So nice, 6 years or more in Romania already.
Almost 6 years in Romania. I have a very well kept secret. I understand Romanian, but I have been unable to speak it. When I try to speak Romanian, people indicate that they don't understand me, so I stopped trying. And Romanians are very kind. So even when I'm in the building, by the time I get to my floor, people shifted to English. So unfortunately, I have not been able to talk, but I can understand Romanian quite well.
So you need more years.
I need more years. I need more years. Hopefully I get more years because we're enjoying living in Romania a lot.
That's great. I remember because it's our second interview,
Yes.
3 or 4 years ago, I think it was this interview, and we said the next interview will be in Romanian. So let's make a promise for the next interview to be in Romanian, yes? At least at the beginning.
The intention is there. The intention is there. So we will try for the next one to be in Romanian, or at least that you can ask the questions in Romanian. I might still reply in English.
Perfect. So Serge, let's start to talk about these topics for today, about the companies. Firstly, I want to ask you, we are talking about how big the companies, what size in your department. We are talking about what size of the companies right now,
So if you look at business banking in ING Romania, we initially only had SMEs and mid-corporates, but we have now actually enlarged it. So I have all the companies from self-employed all the way up to the largest Romanian company. So the threshold is up to 100 million turnover. But if companies are growing bigger and we can still service them, they stay with business banking. And if they, for instance, have different type of needs, we have the possibility to transfer them to our wholesale banking colleagues, which are servicing the big multinationals. So there is life after business banking, but I tend to try to keep them, especially the local Romanian companies.
I see. And what type of products these companies need or access?
Maybe if we take a step back, I think if I look at what entrepreneurs want and what they are looking for, and also with the Chamber of Commerce, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, not as a banker, but as the president of the chamber. And when we talk to them, they talk about everything. What are market opportunities? What are some of the products you're launching? What are new opportunities you see? So there is a lot of can you hire people? I have a problem getting skilled employees. We have a new tax legislation. How will it impact you? And what I have actually learned is they're talking about a lot of the business angles, but not necessarily, I have not heard anybody talk about how much they actually enjoy dealing with their bank. So the bank only comes actually in the discussion when we can facilitate some of their investment projects or some of their needs. And so I think when you ask me what kind of products, I think it's very important to first understand that for many entrepreneurs, we're not the primary need, we're actually a secondary need to help them to realize their goals and objectives. So, and it is also why in our purpose we have empowering people to stay ahead in life and business. So this is a bit where I'm coming from, and also you mentioned it, I was CFO before, where I've learned a bank has a different role. We are there a facilitator and a supporter, and I sometimes even would say a cheerleader for the companies that are our clients. And what comes to mind is, for instance, when you look at the movie What Women Want with Mel Gibson, he actually had the opportunity to hear the thoughts of the clients that were selling their products. What do they actually want? And okay, I've never been electrocuted in a bathtub, but if that would happen, I think my clients would tell me two things. One, they actually want me to facilitate managing their financials in a very simple and efficient way. So it needs to be seamless. It needs to be whenever they want to make a payment, they can make a payment. This is the convenience part, what they're looking for in the bank. Secondly, I think what they actually look for is, can you help me to grow? And can you actually help me to develop my business further? And this is a very wide spectrum. It starts maybe when they're starting to grow, I need a loan. But it can also, for instance, be, can you connect me to partners? I need a supplier, I want to go international, are there maybe opportunities there? And this is, I think, the other part, the advising part, where we're coming in. And this is, I think, also when you look at what kind of products, the question that you were asking, what kind of products are they using? And if you look at the client portfolio we're having, I think up to 90% of my clients are self-employed micro companies, and roughly 9-10% is SMEs and larger companies. So the majority of the products that we are actually selling are related to daily banking. It's payments, it is cash management. We're looking also, for instance, at soft POS, that people can actually pay by card, they don't need to do cash. And that's mainly in the smaller part. And then if you go in looking at the bigger companies, you start to see indeed that products like lending, FX start to get more into play.
So they are not coming, firstly, I want a loan. So
No.
The needs of the companies are coming firstly from, I don't know, current account, payments, how to make very fast this kind of payments. And so I know that ING Bank promises to have 100%, to be 100% digital bank. How it's applied to the companies these things, so you can manage this to be 100% digital?
I'm always a bit jealous when I look at my retail colleagues at home bank. So I think the real standard that ING set on digital banking was set in the private individuals. But we do realize, and we're seeing in the last couple of years, and I think in the last 2 years that I took over as head of business banking, we can replicate that model quite well for many of the companies. That doesn't say we're going to be 100% digital, I will come back to that later, but we can actually make sure that one of the needs, how to manage financials, the financial side of the company, easy, we can do a lot digital there. So what we have done last year, we have created one platform for all the companies that we're servicing, ING Business, and all the companies are there. Now that unfortunately went a little bit with some ups and downs because people needed to get used after they came from home bank, which was their channel, to ING Business. And initially the app rating of ING Business was a bit on the lower end, and maybe it's a bit of an understatement. But this is where with the team we have worked tremendously hard to actually listen to the voice of the customer. And we looked at what do they want? So they want simple logins, they want to have clear payment schedules, they want to have the information in one place. And recently we even did a product shop where in one screen they can see all the products they can get. By actually strengthening the digital channel, we're now seeing that 70% of the logins that people are making is actually on the mobile. So we see that a lot of the traffic that we see digitally is already moving into the mobile space. And more this year, especially the second half of the year, we have looked at what are the key processes that people want for a bank to be digital. And we have launched now 6 of them, which are the ones that many of the companies use. They could already do all the payments digitally, and they had already FX digitally, so there were already some of the components that they needed on a day-to-day basis digitally. But now we have also said we have the loan digital. So if you're a small company and you want to have an instant loan, which is a loan
how
up to...
big or how...
The loans that we offer there are up to 500,000 RON. And that are loans you can get fully digital. And if you look at the actual time...
And it's instant? Yeah.
Instant. So
based
within...
on your...
We look at your financials, which we get from enough. You need to actually allow us to interrogate enough. We look at, if you're a client from ING, we look at your transactional profile. and within 20 minutes, the loan is approved and disbursed. So this is actually one of the, because we noticed a lot of the companies that are growing, one of the first needs they get is working capital because they need to finance some inventories.
Yeah.
So we actually said we will do that with a term loan. We do get now quite a lot of discussion with clients that said it's nice that you have a term loan, but it's more for investment purposes. And maybe we also would like to have an overdraft. So in the coming period, we're also going to launch the instant overdraft. So you can have a term loan for maybe some investments, and you can have the overdraft for working capital, which is also better optimized from a cost base. If you don't need it, you don't draw it, while the term loan is always fully disbursed. So we were tackling the lending side, which is now there. Then we also looked at, but people want to actually maybe have an additional debit card. They want to open an account, maybe also
or
a foreign currency account. We don't have virtual cards will come for the businesses, but we don't have that one yet. But it's on the roadmap for next year. So we said we will look at, can people get an additional card? Can they get an extra account? Those elements are also there now. So legal representatives can apply for that. And then finally we realized one of the major pain points we see also from the voice of the customer is actually the CDD review updating the data. And there we realized with many of the smaller companies we can actually simplify it a lot, because we can also go to the trade registry, we can get quite a lot of documents. So we have just launched a fully digital CDD review for small companies that have a single shareholder.
How you listen to the voice of the customer? They call you, it's a chat, it's how it's working?
Well, there are a couple of moments in time where we do it, but we have the annual Net Promoter Scores where we run actually surveys across the market. And actually there I'm very proud that in the last year scores improved quite a lot, and we're now ranking consistently 1 or 2 in all the segments that we have. Which for me is very important, because I think ultimately the success of business banking is with client growth, and it is with the NPS score. So this is one of the areas where we're listening, and we do this twice a year. Great. Then we also have the NPS that we're asking from clients when we call them back. So we also proactively reach out, which is more transactional. When people have a loan, when people did a CDD review, there's interaction there, also with the office consultants. And unfortunately, we also have sometimes that things don't go well when people are interacting with the competence center. And that's another moment in time for us to talk to the clients and to learn. And one of the things we have done this year is also starting to call back customers that, for instance, close the accounts, because we also want to still understand what are the things that we can improve. And actually that resulted in us to maintain many of the clients, because when you call them and you ask them what is there, many of them said, okay, but you're listening to me, so we can actually continue. And based on that, we're trying to plot out what are the moments of truth that our clients experience, what are the things that are going very well, and we're seeing back that they like the digital part, they like also the flexibility, and some of the things where they believe we can improve. And this is, for instance, why we have done so much on lending and on the CDD review, because we realized that for smaller companies, these were 2 of the points that they actually thought we could be easier for them to deal with, and also to provide them with a different type of service.
And if they have questions or they have problems with by paying the installments, for instance, because we know right now the interests are high, and or other type of the questions, how they can address it? Yeah,
so when you look at, and maybe let's split the question into different parts. So I think what we're seeing is that when there are normal daily banking parts, and for instance they cannot or they have questions, normally they go to the competence center. So they call, we have their very...
and this competence center is linked with the business account?
So they call, we have made it very simple to identify, so they can actually identify themselves by logging into ING Business. The call center employee sees that the client logs in, knows the client, and there they can actually help them with many of the questions they have.
Right.
And I think going forward, what we're trying to do is actually make it more simple, because ultimately I would like them to be able to call directly from the app. And that is something that we will also explore next year, because then if you have a question, you would have a button in the app, please give a call, and then you immediately have somebody that can assist you from a remote team. The second channel that many people are using are the ING offices. So I do realize that although we want to be very digital, there are also still moments when people actually want to have advice or to have a discussion. So we also see that many people still go to the offices, for instance, when they want to do the loan. It is not strange for people to start in ING business, but at the moment that they need to sign the contract, still think, I want to actually discuss this with somebody. Or I want to make sure, am I making the right decision? Am I not missing something? So, and there I do realize that people generally do not call the competence center, but they actually prefer to go to their ING office and speak to the consultant. Not necessarily because they are concerned about getting a loan, but they just want to have the confirmation and talk through it and make sure that they have not missed anything.
Yeah, it is the personal touch that you trust in the person that you are talking, and it is a professional that you look for advice. That is my question about digital also. How ready they are the companies, the Romanian companies, to be 100% digital and not having a direct
So
conversation
I will try to answer that one first and then go back to maybe the
okay,
question on the installments.
Yeah, sorry that I came with
but you had a couple of questions together. So, and this is also indeed the point where we're seeing that there is a difference between having the digital capabilities and more we will have the digital capabilities, for instance, for an SME or a small company to have a completely digital relationship with the bank. But there is also a question indeed of adoption and willingness. And there I think that will take much longer. And I think people will appreciate the digital proposition from a convenience point of view and from their day-to-day activities where they're comfortable with. When there is a moment that they're taking a decision that's more one-off or that has maybe bigger implications, which could be a first loan, it could be maybe a discussion on are there opportunities for my company to take an EU grant. Maybe there are questions that they have for are there opportunities maybe to grow. This is the part where business banking will never become 100%. We can try also with personalized communication, remote teams, but I am convinced that that part of the relationship will never disappear.
Me also, so that's why
but I think it's very important to distinguish when people need the relation and to make that relational part as good as it can be, to have dedicated specialized people be there whenever they want, and maybe even on appointment, to have more predictability that they have the right people around the table to help them, and not for everything. And this is where I think slowly we see it moving, and that's also visible in the adoption. So I think that if I look at it, probably by year end, half of the cards that are being requested will be requested digital. Probably 1 out of 4 loans will be requested digital. So there is quite a lot of appetite for people to adopt, but we need to realize that a part of our client base would still prefer to see people personally. And that might change. It could well be that if you look 10 years in the future, it is different. But now it changes. And I think you can also see a differentiation in Romania between where you are. I think in the bigger urban areas and in the younger generation that are in the startup phase, there's a bigger willingness and preference to go digital. While when I visit some of the clients that have all the shareholders, and I had it recently, it was a young CFO and an older owner. The older owner said, "I like people." The CFO said, "I like digital." So I think even there we see that mix coming up, and I think we need to be very vigilant how we do that. We need to make sure that all the clients feel comfortable and that we give them the right type of relationship and approach that meets their needs.
Exactly. So what they need.
Yeah.
And back to the
and in order to close the brackets there, I think it's equally important for us to educate people. Because part of the adoption is also the unknown. So I do realize that when I actually sit with many of the clients and we go through the app with them and we show what's possible, there's a very big willingness to adopt. And that's also what we're now doing, for instance, with the offices and the branches. We're actually helping them to promote the digital channel because it will free up more time for them to do advice and acquisition. Now then the part where you come economically, the situation gets more difficult for some clients. Price increases, we see increased cost of interest.
Advice, yes, actually.
So I think if I look at that, I think I would break it down into 3 steps. I think first it starts also with financial education. So do people understand their financial situation when they want to make investments? Do they understand some of the implications? And what we're now trying to do there, we have developed a financial benchmarking tool where we can actually show the financial metrics of a company and then also plot it against the industry. So it's like you can see a bit where am I vis-a-vis my peers. And we're trying in very simplistic terms to indicate what can they do to improve. And I think this part of the financial education helps people to think through what is the implication if I invest, where do we go? Then the second step on our side, and this is where we're still seeing sometimes that people say, we would like to get a loan, but I'm not getting the full amount. It's still because we are, especially in the smaller segments, we have a prudent approach. We don't want people, for instance, to take a loan that is too big for them. Because ultimately we're thinking in the interest of the clients and we want to also protect them from getting into financial difficulties in the future. And then finally, when people actually are facing some of the difficulties, this is, I think, where a very proactive early approach works best. And this is where we're reaching out and trying to find the solutions with the clients, which can take many forms. It can be postponement of payments, it can be a restructuring of the loan. But ultimately, our interest is always in trying to find ways together with the client to get them back to financial health.
You are making this by request or also coming directly to them with a proposal in order to be better for his financials? It
depends on the different on the size of the company.
So proactive or
by request? In the bigger part, it's more sometimes also proactive because you have the discussion with the relationship manager. They know the company. The digital loans are more done and managed as a portfolio approach. So this is where also the client initiative, the discussion with the office comes in, but we would not be reaching out to them proactively probably.
And if we are talking about mentorship and consultancy, personal and private mentorship, do you have programs or how the clients can approach this?
We have programs. So if you, because, and I think this is also where we're realizing, and I started in the beginning, that we put the self-employed and the micro companies together with business banking. So we are traditionally maybe known more for the bigger companies, and we're now really trying to also build up our awareness in the startup scene. We always worked quite a lot with Startarium.
Just
finishing Romanians are entrepreneurs. Yeah. So we just had the former pitch day event last week, which changed a bit because we were not only doing startups but also now established companies. And I think this is a process where also in the run-up people can actually help to prepare the pitches and move on. And I was very happy to see, for instance, that one of the winners in the startups was a climate company, which is a very interesting model, which also fits very well with our putting sustainability at the heart of what we do, using plastic and glass to build material for roads. So this is one. They also have their platform, which is used by 70,000 people from an educational point of view. But we realize we need to do more. And this is, for instance, why as ING we have now started with the in-business blog, which is available on our website. And we said there are a couple of elements that we want to put there. We have, for instance, the link to Startarium there. We also have the link to Scale Out. I will touch upon that later. But what we also have put there is, for instance, Business ABC.
From the beginning.
From the beginning. How do you actually start it? Because we do see that depending on the life cycle of the company, the request change. So we realize that when people actually start the company, they're looking for practical information. How do I start the company? What are some of the requirements that I have? Where do I need to register the company? What are legal, accounting? What tax shall I pay? But also, how do I open the bank account? What kind of documentation do we need there? So this is where actually we're trying to get to the point, how can we help people to start a company? Which matched quite nicely also with what Startarium is doing, where people can think through their business ideas with business canvases. How do we build that?
And
but
second?
but also we realized that when it comes to mentorship, coaching, and maybe some incubators, people are also looking for, now that I've started, how do I actually grow? And this is where we have, for instance, now working together with Romanian business leaders, where we did scale out 4 times 10. And across the country, we have selected 4 times 10 entrepreneurs and scale out 4 times 10 that are actually now getting mentorship from specialists and entrepreneurs, how to build a growth plan for their company. So they need to have a turnover of 1 million, and how do we actually build that forward? And the outcome should be that they have a very clear, defined plan, how they're going to scale.
So this started again, just started, or it is in place?
We have run it now for this year. So we had the events in Oradea, Targumures, Constanța, and Iași, which was very exciting because you have a room full of people, a lot of energy. I think the energy is always great to see. And the 10 entrepreneurs in each region have been selected and they're now being supported. And we're now together with our team looking at, do we want to continue this? And how can we continue it to also get more impact on the entrepreneurial scene?
I'm so happy that we finish with this optimism, because when you meet the people and the companies and see their energy and feel it, the energy is very nice for continuing, and you know that you are on the right steps. So this is my last question: how you see 2024 regarding companies and also the external situation?
Before I enter that one, maybe because we realize that we can do even more. So we have also launched the Connect events, where we're trying to work with local chambers of commerce.
Oh, great.
And what we're trying to do there is a very specific approach, looking at what kind of companies are there in the region. So for instance, when we were in Oradea, we did agriculture and we did automotive. But we're also looking at what are the questions companies have, because we do see that in these times, and I will make the bridge then to what do I think, they are looking at what kind of solutions are there, for instance, to manage my liquidity. So we had presentations, how can companies use factoring to free up working capital? How can they optimize their liquidity?
So come with solutions.
We come with solutions, and then we had discussions with them on how to manage volatility. So we showed them what kind of hedging is there. Not only on interest, but also FX. And what was for me an eye-opener, and I was really happy with that some of the companies said, but we're looking also at the sustainability profile of my company. Can you do something with carbon? Which for me was an eye-opener, and we actually said we can do that. So we brought in people from Amsterdam who are specialists to give dedicated presentations. But I think the most important part of these events, except for the knowledge sharing part, is bringing the entrepreneurs together. And that's why we said we will not only have a room full of people, you will listen to pitches of people and then we go home. We actually said we will finish with a walking dinner. And by finishing with a walking dinner, we were able to keep the people there, not only to talk to us, but also to talk to each other. And I think they're sharing the ideas, getting their head around what are other solutions, what are others doing, that is great. And there you see a lot of discussions coming up, but I'm looking at renewable energy, I'm looking at circular economy. I've seen great ideas with EU funds. And that is then also for us again a link to say, look, but we can help you. We have the specialists for EU funds. We are able to advise whenever it's needed on some of the structuring of the sustainable deals, because we have done things with packaging companies or with manufacturing companies that were doing things in those areas. And I think this is where we will continue to build on. It will be on helping startups in actually starting the business, giving the relevant information, doing the matchmaking and knowledge sharing on the bigger companies. Then I will come back to your question.
About next year, yeah?
About next year. And if I look at next year for me, and I've been here now, like you said, for almost 6 years. And in those 6 years, for me, it was always surprising when I was concerned, and we had a pandemic, we had all kinds of uncertainties. Every time I talked to Romanian entrepreneurs, they told me, you're way too worried. You should not be worried. We're very used to managing uncertainty. We know how to deal with it. We have always managed through properly. And I was always a bit like, yeah, but are you sure this time could be different? And I realize now, also doing a lot of the presentations through the country, and we just had the night of the SMEs which ING sponsors of the chamber. For the first time, I sense there is quite a lot of uncertainty in the business community. And for the first time, it seems like the tables have turned, and I'm more positive than the entrepreneurial community.
So they convince you?
No, they haven't convinced me, because what they are actually indicating is, look, I mean, if we look at it, what do we see? We have now a lot of geopolitical tensions, so we're very worried. What will they do for prices? Maybe prices will go up again, or my value chains will be again. It will be difficult to buy raw materials. They see also, of course, with legislative changes, also on the fiscal side, the cost will go up. And on the other side, they said, look, we're still facing a lot of high cost and for the companies, and we struggle also with getting new people in. So the labor market, getting skilled employees is difficult. My story is more optimistic and more upbeat, because if I look at, and I have a very big trust in my chief economist, if we actually look at what do we actually see inflation coming down. And it depends a bit. Yes, all the concerns are there, and maybe it goes quicker, maybe it goes a bit slower, but inflation will come down, which should help a lot, and which should also help with actually bringing down interest rates. And ING published this weekend a very interesting article on Think, ing.think, which is the global macroeconomic site, where they have shown the different scenarios for Europe, for Asia, for the US, and everywhere you see it goes down. Sometimes, depending on what happens in the world, a little bit slower, but the general tendency is inflation goes down, interest rates will not further go, but should go down. This should give companies a lot of breathing room. Then there is a lot of EU funds available to invest in the country. And if I travel through the country, and I was in the US recently to open the honorary consulate, if I see the infrastructure that they're building there, all the activities that is surrounding there, also with new distribution and logistical centers, I still get a lot of positive vibe there, although there is a bit of uncertainty there. And that's also ultimately translated into the economic projections. I mean, if I look at it, real GDP growth is expected to double next year compared to this year. And Romania would again be one of the growth engines in Europe. So yes, I see the tension. I also hear the stories about technical recession in Germany, etc. But when I look at just the underlying fundamentals, it seems to become a positive story.
That's important. And what I come for the end of the interview, what I like a lot, it's about companies and the Romanian entrepreneurs that are all the time positive and thinking positive. That okay, uncertainty would be all the time, external part, but we will adapt and we'll make it possible.
Yeah.
So
the resilience and positivity, this is amazing. I've always been very much impressed with that.
So thanks a lot, Serge.
You're welcome.
For the interview, and good luck with all the projects, and let's make things happen.
We will. Thank you as well.
Thank you.